Starfield, a game that seemingly everyone has heard of or spoke about, but more than that, Starfield was a title that the gaming world seemed to be universally looking forward to. And regardless of your personal feelings about the game, the launch of Starfield was not the triumph that everybody was hoping for, and you can see this in just the commitment from Bethesda. They're dedicating a lot of resources and patches. Quite literally hundreds of bugs and problems have already been fixed, which is an indication the launch was not that great. And the user scores also is something you can look to see that this just wasn't the game everyone was hoping for. The scores on Steam continue to fall as many players come to grips with their disappointment. But could this Bethesdian fall from the throne be redeemed? Can Starfield rise from the ashes of its own making? Well, it would seem that Bethesda and Todd Howard hope to do just that, and this goes beyond the promised updates every 6 weeks in 2024. Bethesda didn't quite have a cyberpunk-level moment, but it certainly was their own cyberpunk moment. And what I mean is, it fell so far below the prior games and the previous heights that Bethesda fans felt the studio had achieved. So while it wasn't as broken to the degree that Cyberpunk was, in a similar fashion, the way that Cyberpunk fell so far below the general consensus about The Witcher 3, Starfield did not measure up to Bethesda's previous hits. Specifically, Skyrim comes to mind, with the scope and the size of that game reaching far beyond its own launch. Open-world RPGs of today have undeniably been influenced by what Skyrim achieved. But now some would be quick to point to Fallout 4. It had bugs at launch, and then there was the disastrous launch of Fallout 76, and they would do this to show that Starfield was not an isolated incident. So it might be fair to see this as more of a slow descent rather than a catastrophic crash. And even then, Fallout 4's reception with respect to the user score is actually quite good in the mid-80s to 90. And a lot of gamers would be quick to point out that, well, hey, Fallout 76 was a different team. So whether you think Starfield was a fall from grace or just a continued decline in Bethesda's trajectory, the point is, Starfield is an opportunity for redemption. And the gaming world is not unfamiliar with a comeback story. Cyberpunk, as I've already mentioned, completely turned the game around with Phantom Liberty. And you can never discuss a video game comeback without mentioning what Hello Games has achieved with No Man's Sky. After 7 years of free updates and re-earned trust and confidence from the public, Sean Murray stole the show at the Game Awards with an announcement and a trailer for Light No Fire. So comebacks are possible, but what would it take for Starfield? Well, we can't necessarily talk about hope for a comeback without talking about how it all started. It all started in the middle of 2018, the Starfield official announcement teaser. It somehow managed to show less than the Elder Scrolls 6 announcement trailer, a simple planet with starlight cresting from behind it and a camera panning down to a space station. And like many teasers, it was more enigmatic than informative. The trailer description simply states, "Discover Starfield, the new space epic currently in development by Bethesda Game Studios. Starfield is the first new franchise in 25 years from the acclaimed developers of the Elder Scrolls and Fallout series." Obviously, with a studio like Bethesda, seeing them set their sights on the stars was exciting. Well, the game largely stayed mysterious and unseen until 2021, and this was when the infamous teaser trailer landed, claiming that the game would be, quote, a brand new universe 25 years in the making. It's always a risk, creating the impression that the game that you're making has been being made for a quarter of a century, but the trailer did more than make claims. It showed what appeared to be in-engine footage that looked too good to be true. The internals of a ship with exceptional lighting, realistic assets, and movement. In classic video game teaser fashion, we get cryptic shots with what may or may not contain clues about the game, or the content, or the release date. But it was probably the planetary footage followed by the cockpit footage that really began the hype train for this mysterious game called Starfield. Numerous screens and control boards can be seen, the pilots making what looks like minor adjustments and final flight prep, and then the ship boarding ramp closes and a takeoff sequence is initiated, which clearly mimics famous shots and camera angles of real NASA missions, looking up at what looks like rolling steam from the ship itself just before sparks and flames shoot from the thrusters. For many, this is the greatest mystery, space exploration or just space itself. The trailer also concluded with the release date. No clues needed here, right? 11/11/22. So with only a year and a half to wait, the hype train was set in motion. But they had to delay the release date, and that was, according to Todd, set in ink. Now this happened the following year in May of 2022, which According to many observations at the time, this was smartly done before the June showcase, so they could focus on the game and not the new unknown release date. And with the delay announcement out of the way, the Starfield gameplay reveal was set to take place in June of 2022. Now, this reveal was 15 minutes long. It featured Todd Howard, as well as a pretty extensive and comprehensive look at the game. Glimpses of skill trees, weapon crafting, spaceflight, and combat are spread out across the official gameplay reveal. And this is when the hype train slows down for some while speeding up for others. Performance issues are noticeable in the trailer, and inconsistent lighting and shadows is something that gets questioned and pointed out by some in the gaming world. Also, it was noticeably not quite as strong visually as that teaser trailer with all the great lighting and the pristine internals of the spaceship. And this begins the debate about whether or not Starfield will be 60 FPS or capped at 30, especially since there was noticeable frame drops and stutters in the gameplay in the trailer itself. Now, as I said, some had their hype increased by this trailer simply because it was such a lengthy look at a highly anticipated game, and since the game was no longer releasing in 2022, there was time to polish it, right? Any of the performance issues could be fixed before release. Then, in March of 2023, it was announced that Starfield would not be releasing in the first half of 2023 as they previously indicated. Similar to the delay in 2022, many assumed this was done to ensure the summer showcase was more about the game rather than another delay. Finally, June of 2023 arrives, and the Starfield Direct is largely a hit. It was 45 minutes of Bethesda staff, along with Todd, talking about the unparalleled freedom that this game would offer. Folks like myself and others saw marked improvement in the game's movement, its combat, and its shooting. But sadly, all the concerns about performance were confirmed in an interview with them after the Direct. Todd Howard said that the game would be capped at 30 FPS on Xbox. To many, this felt like another fork in the road had formed. Now, instead of debating about potential performance issues in a trailer, there was a clear dividing line. A highly anticipated next-gen only game was going to feature performance that for many is a deal breaker. But the other road, the hype train road, it was still trundling along, with some fans seeing Starfield as the biggest game launch of 2023. And then the launch happened. The critical acclaim seemed to be off to a good start, and not without controversy, as some outlets were completely skipped over and not sent review codes, but slowly over time, even the Metacritic score fell for Starfield. Started out with a strong 91, then an 86, and now it's sitting at an 83. But the user scores on Xbox and Steam tell the real story about consumer reception. A 3.4 out of 5 on Xbox, which is a 68%, and the Steam score is much worse. A 61% overall, and the recent 30 days worth of scores on Steam is a staggeringly low 43%. Now, I say staggeringly low because this is Bethesda, the makers of Doom, Fallout 4, and Skyrim, which all have strong scores. And Fallout 76 has managed to climb after its rough launch to a 75% overall. Now, some might point to Skyrim's launch, as well as Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, and say, look, those scores have risen over time. They've improved, which is precisely what a lot of fans would like to see for Starfield. And seemingly, Todd Howard and the team at Bethesda are aiming at that. Recently, a PC Gamer article was published entitled, "While Everyone Else Gets Hyped About Fallout, Todd Howard is Promising Some Really Good Updates for Starfield." Now, the success of the Fallout TV show has Todd Howard doing a round of interviews, and he sat down with IGN. When asked about Fallout 5 and The Elder Scrolls 6, he said their focus for new development was focused on The Elder Scrolls 6, but then he said the following about Starfield. "We're doing a lot of Starfield work as well, so we have some really good updates that are going to get announced soon for that game, so a lot going on here." He says updates. I don't think he's just talking about patches here. When he says this, it's worth noting that Bethesda did promise an update every 6 weeks in 2024, and a few of those have already landed. Unfortunately, for fans hoping to see major changes, these patches have largely focused on bug fixes, or adding something somewhat underwhelming, like an update to photo mode that added expressions for your character. So while some remain doubtful, in light of other games in the market that have risen from worse starts, I would say that Starfield can rise from its own ashes. If Cyberpunk can do it, if No Man's Sky can do it, and more importantly, if Fallout 4, Skyrim, and Fallout 76 can improve over time, well then so can Starfield. The lingering questions are, can they actually do it, and when? Will the comeback moment land with the Shattered Space DLC? And Is any of this related to prepping the game for a PS5 port, given leaks and insiders claiming that more big Xbox games are coming? But for now, I will say this. Starfield was riding high in the initial reveals, and I think they can, like other games, get close to that vision, if not maybe even sail beyond it. But those are just my thoughts. Now it's time to hear your thoughts, and you can do that by leaving a comment below, or these videos typically redirect to a live stream, and you can click that right over here on this card, or there might even be a link below. I hope to see you there.